I've been a UX strategist, designer, speaker, trainer, consultant since the mid-90s. Who remembers the mid-90s? Yes, a few people. Mid-90s, thank you. It's not really. Someone was like, maybe. Okay, we work on that. And I've got a company called P-Type, short for prototype, because I do a lot of UX prototyping, and we also do a lot of working with companies to help them build or improve their UX teams, how to set them up and strategize and work with tools and processes, onboarding, training, all that stuff. Clients like to call me Mary Poppins. Who remembers the Mary Poppins movie? Maybe? Okay, it's coming out again, so you have a second chance. Clients like to call me Mary Poppins because I fly in, fix everything, sing a few songs, and fly away to where I'm needed next, though I prefer to stay. We got to keep our UX people around a little bit longer. I'm also vetted by TopTal, so they like me to put that logo up there. And please add me on LinkedIn if you think you want to hear me again someday. So add me on LinkedIn. I guess it's optional, not mandatory. And this session is going to boil my 2-day DevOps ICU workshop down to about 45 minutes. So I'll tell you a little more about the long version later. But that means I can't really take questions in the middle, and I may even run out of time at the end. So what I like to do is, if you look at the bottom of the slide, I use menti.com, M-E-N-T-I. It's on the bottom left of every slide. And you type in a number, 88752, and you can ask me a question at any point during the talk if a question comes to you. However, please put your email address. If you don't put your email address, I can't answer you later. So make sure, because we may not get to the questions at the end. I'll also be around all day. Please find me, even if I look very serious and like I'm working. Just interrupt me. I'm from America. You can interrupt me. We're used to that. But ask questions, and if we don't get to them today, I promise to email everybody back individually with answers, but only if you give me your email. I can't tell you how many of these talks I do where I get questions and no email. I'm good, but I'm not that good. So, moving on. This session I also consider highly tweetable or LinkedInable. So feel free to take photos of the slides and tweet them out. You can mention me at DevOps ICU. You can use, of course, the hashtag for today's event. And you ever notice at a conference people have slides with animations and you have no idea when they're going to be done with the animations. You don't know when to take the picture. So I've invented this little camera icon. And if I have a slide with animations or bullet points that are coming up, that camera icon will show up when I'm done with the animation, so you know it's a cool time to take a picture if you like to take pictures. So, that having been said, let's jump right in. Here we go. Everyone sit, be comfortable, stretch out if you like. So at many companies, of course, engineering is fed by other teams. Blueprints, ideas, concepts, they all come from somebody who created the layouts and the flows and how the customer is going to interact with the system. These are typically non-engineering individuals who are part of the collaboration throughout the software development process. Engineering doesn't operate in a vacuum. But too many companies are circumventing and excluding UX because they didn't see anything about UX in any of the Agile or software dev training books, manuals, infographics that they've read. Or they assume UX workers are just time and budget wasters. Or they assume UX people just draw boxes on a page and anybody can do that. Well, I'm here to tell you that's wrong, and we're going to learn more about that in our time together, because expert UX architects do everything with researching, designing, and testing between someone saying, I have an idea, and someone else saying, let's get it to developers to be built. DevOps is about so much more than how developers connect with IT, how infrastructure is managed, and how frameworks can be improved. It's about recognizing how many teams are truly involved in the process, how intertwined their roles and their work are, and making sure everybody's at the table to collaborate. Developers and engineering architects always want to be involved with UX and creative when we're designing the product, but where's that in the definition of DevOps? And of course, us creative people, all the UX people, want to be involved when developers and engineers are building and testing, but so many methodologies exclude us. So these are old silos we need to break down. All your customer sees is your user experience. That's it. They don't know if you had 1,000 developers or one developer. They don't know if you were agile or lean or waterfall. And you're a user too. The software and systems that you've chosen have competitors. So how did you pick the ones that you selected? And when you're using a system you don't like, are you thinking, man, I wonder how many sprints that took? Probably not. When something doesn't work the way you expected it to, you're probably thinking, who built this junk? And that's a good question. Who designed this product? Who researched with users like you to learn your habits and needs and motivations and then design for those? Was this tested on people like you before it was unleashed on the public? UX is driven by some of the same results that DevOps wants. We're problem finders, problem solvers, product designers, and customer advocates driven by product quality and building what customers really need. We care about our teams working efficiently and getting engaging, easy to learn, easy to use, tell your friends it's fantastic products to market as fast as possible. Enhancing this relationship saves time, money, and sanity. What's UX? Does anybody feel like they don't really know what UX is or does? You can raise your hand. I usually get about half the room going, no clue, that's why I'm here. Thank you. Thank you people in the back who raised their hand. So UX is the more scientific, psychological, and problem-solving side of product, experience, and service design. Our goals include happier, more loyal customers, ease of learning and use, shorter, more intuitive processes, and accessibility for people with mobility, vision, hearing, cognitive, and other issues. See how well that camera icon works? I got all of you trained. So, here's an example. In America a few years ago, there was a football game where they decided to get creative with the uniforms and put one team in all red and one team in all green, even though those weren't their usual uniforms. But the problem was, if you were colorblind, the game looked like this. And people, including former football stars, were tweeting, I'm colorblind, I can't follow this game. And it was a bit of a controversy for Nike, who had designed the uniforms and didn't seem to know anything about color blindness. So you might think that UX just draws boxes on a page, but part of our work is to take all of the differently abled people into consideration so that we're creating interfaces that work for everybody. So just like software development has processes like Agile, UX has one process that most people are or should be using, and it's called user-centered design. Now, we've got a short session here. This is not my 2-day version. You're welcome. So we need to just hit a few points here and move quickly. So this can be a long process that takes time, or sometimes we're just doing pieces of this and it takes much less time. So when UX first gets requirements, we should be collaborating with all of you, the engineers and your coworkers. It's important to start collaborating right away so that UX doesn't find out later that it's designed something that can't be built. Research is an important part of what UX does. It's not user-centered without users. Statistics and quantitative data can be great, but there's no substitute for talking to humans and deeply understanding them, getting qualitative data. UX wants to know why and not just what. Information architecture has to do with structures, hierarchies, and taxonomies. This could be site navigation, or it could be how products are categorized in an e-commerce database. We want to make sure that people can easily find what they're looking for through categories, metadata, and filters. Interaction design, also called experience design, is what you guys are usually thinking of when you imagine UX, if you're imagining UX at all. These are our wireframes and prototypes, the blueprints of our designs. These would show process flows, layouts, menus, interactions, paths, choices, and a lot more. Now it goes to user testing, also called usability testing, which, yes, happens during our process before engineering writes a line of code. We need to make sure that the idea and its execution are right for our target customers. We don't want engineering building it until we're sure this is what will be built. User testing can bring to light any flaws, which means we are then circling back to the interaction design step so that we can iterate on our ideas. So where does UX fit in? If you don't use UX at your company or on your project now, your life probably looks like this. A client, a product manager, the CEO, someone with vision tells you, this is what I want. You build it, you test it, you get it on a server. Wouldn't you know, when someone sees it, they go, now that I see it, I don't think that's really what I want. I think I want something different. Or they change their mind. That means now you have to circle back and go, okay, now what do you want? And then you have to build that, test that, get it on a server, and hope that you don't cycle through this too many times. Eventually you'll release something live, and hope that humans like it. If you have UX as part of your process, it looks a little more like this. The person with the vision, or the CEO, the product person, goes to UX. They tell UX everything. UX cycles through the user-centered design process. UX iterates on their ideas. Then they're taken to testing to make sure it's going to be a great solution. Then, at that point, hopefully, clients, internal stakeholders, and now we know the users like it. That means it's ready for UX to wrap up and deliver for you guys to build once. If the client wants to change their mind, they come back to UX. They don't come back to engineering and start putting in change requests. UX runs interference on everything, and the UX process is a great time to have a change of mind because it costs very little to change your mind. Instead of having to get developers and engineering to redo things, UX can just change wireframes and prototypes, and then, of course, test them again. The goal is for you to build a fantastic, vetted product once. Can you smell that? That is the sweet pizza smell of only having to build something once and not having to rebuild it over and over again because someone keeps changing their mind. So let's talk quickly about lean. UX usually disagrees with product managers and engineering on just how lean do we go when we're building an MVP, minimum viable product. Well, which is the minimum viable jogging outfit? Normally I have people vote on this. I don't have enough time right now, but I find that people who don't work in UX pick the first one. It's certainly viable, and if you take off the hat, it's pretty minimal. But UX would say the middle one, because we want to build something that has enough features to create customer satisfaction. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. This is especially true for the first time your customer visits your website or installs your app. Is this going to be enough for them to really use or enjoy or get fish hooked on? I love me. Remember, you're running the risk that customers think you're bad at this or you build broken things. And if people were turned off by your MVP or your beta, are they going to reinstall and give you another chance when you come out with another version? How many times do you give companies second and third chances? That's why for UX, the V in MVP stands for valuable. What's the leanest product we can build and release that the customer will still feel has great value? Customers don't care if you're calling it an MVP. They will still happily hate it, tell everyone they hate it, because people love negative attention. So take it from Eric, Mr. Lean. Even if you're not doing lean, this is still good advice. He said, what if we found ourselves building something nobody wanted? In that case, what did it matter if we did it on time and on budget? Go too lean and minimal, and you might be building something that nobody wants. Your UX expert can help product and engineering prioritize features and stories to find that balance. Oh, take a drink and make it stiff, because we're going to talk about UX and Agile. Please buckle your seatbelts and know that your closest exit may be behind you. I'm going to use Safe Agile in a lot of my examples because they have big, ugly infographics and they're a pretty easy target, but everything I'm saying really works for all flavors of Agile and really of all of software development. With a few things that are more specific to SAFE. So once upon a time, I went for 4 days of SAFE Agile training. Yes, I have since recovered. And when I asked them, where does UX fit into the process, they said to me, this was 2014, we don't know, and if you figure it out, please tell us. Well, I've since tried to tell them, and they didn't want to talk to me, so that was just awkward. But now, in their new version, UX gets a little garbage recycling icon on the bottom left corner, and we're in this weird bar with milestones and system team. But that doesn't tell me or you or anybody what is UX. Who are these people? How do we involve them? Are they in sprints? Are they on the team? When I show this to some people, they say, well, safe is a joke. And I say maybe or maybe not, but I cannot find a lot of Agile books or training or coaching that really goes into any depth at all explaining what UX does, why it's important, and how you involve those people. And if anybody's an Agile trainer or coach, please come talk to me. Let's fix that. So even worse, version 4.5 of the Safe Agile framework says, traditionally, UX has been an area of specialization. People with an eye for design and a feel for user interaction and specialty training were often entirely in charge of the design process. Is that a problem statement, or is that looking back at the good old days? Because that sounds pretty good to me. I think UX designers should be in charge of the design process. But unfortunately, SAFE continues. The goal was pixel-perfect early designs done in advance of implementation. Usually this work was done in silos, apart from the very people who knew the most about the system and its context. Okay, we need to break down silos and improve collaboration and communication, but otherwise, this also sounds pretty good. Yes, we should create pixel-perfect designs before anybody is spending time turning designs and interactions and interfaces into front or back-end code. What developer wants to work on a non-finalized design that might change later? And unfortunately, SAFE uses this and other poor reasoning to announce that you don't need any UX people on your team at all. They are empowering Agile teams to do their own lean UX. Where else does your company like to put untrained, non-specialists in software development teams? And why would untrained, non-specialists imagine that they can do UX work? Notice the eye for design and the feel for user interaction. These words are carefully chosen to minimize UX experts. You wouldn't say that a cardiologist just kinda has a feel for working with human hearts. You wouldn't say your expert developer, gosh, gee, she sure has an eye for programming languages. Those things sound a little disrespectful. But these words are there to help Agile team members self-assess and believe, well, I've got an eye for this and a feel for that. I guess I can do UX work. I guess specialty training isn't important, according to SAFE. I'm going to go with it is, but that's one woman's opinion. So where does UX fit into Agile? Well, first, nobody puts UX in the corner. This is where UX really lives. We're here in portfolio land. We're involved in what we're building, why we're building it, and prioritizing what we're building. We are also here in continuous exploration, that process of continually exploring the market and the user needs to define that vision, roadmap, and features to address the user needs. We're all about customer solutions completely. It's what UX lives for. And of course, we want to make DevOps better. We want to improve and enhance the culture, and we're all about decreasing failure rates, though we're thinking on the human experience level rather than the technical bug level. We want shorter time between fixes, but we really dream of fewer fixes, and I bet you do too. Better UX design earlier, fewer fixes later. One UX designer should be on the Agile team. This person represents the whole creative team and can circle back with designers, UX researchers, and copywriters for anything that has to do with the UX process. Make sure you're inviting your UX person to stand-ups, retro planning, and any meeting or showcase where UX might be discussed. If something comes up relating to UX and the UX person didn't make the meeting, please don't decide without that person. It doesn't make sense to make a decision in your teammates' field of expertise without them. So we're all over this thing. People who don't know where UX fits into Agile just mostly didn't really understand what UX does, how we do it, and why. But you're starting to get that now, so that will make you the genius hero at your company. A few more notes about UX and software development. So if you're doing Agile, we should be in sprints. But for larger new projects, we've got to start weeks or months ahead of you. If you want engineering to have something to build a kickoff, we've got to start ahead of everybody else. We don't have a time machine. Please include UX in iteration planning, but understand that depending upon the features or stories, our work tasks and timing can vary greatly. We might need to just wireframe or prototype something and we can be done quickly, or this might be something new or larger and we have to go through more of our user-centered design process. So make sure you're letting UX plan with you so that they can get the time that they need. And then, of course, include us in sprints, remembering we need to stay 2 or more sprints ahead of you. Get plenty of tech stories or fixing of tech debt into the backlog. Certainly for next year, everybody's going to be refactoring and speeding up their servers, right? So you've got a lot of things you can work on just in case UX's creative and cyclical process runs late. In that case, you can truly be agile and grab something from the backlog that product or engineering has prioritized that isn't waiting for us. The key to the UX process is making sure to include user testing before delivering anything to engineering. That way, we're sure this is a great execution for the customers. But in the UX world, research and testing can be a bottleneck. So your company will need to hire more of the right people or bring in freelancers. And I recommend 1 UX architect for up to 3 projects and a specialist UX researcher for up to 3 architects. Some people hire what we call a T-shaped UX designer. That would be like me, someone who has subspecialties in things like research and testing. You can grab more of those people, but then you have to put them on fewer projects because they're doing more tasks. And remember your Agile Manifesto principles. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. That's directly linked to how valuable, delightful, easy to learn, easy to use, and life-improving this product is. Principle 5, give motivated individuals the environment and support that they need and trust them to get the job done. You have to hire great UX workers and trust them to do their jobs. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Design matters, let's make it great. And my favorite, Principle 10, simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. When UX tries to kill entire projects or change features, we're sometimes seen as the bad guy, but engineering really should support our efforts to be making less work for you by creating simpler or fewer features, or eliminating projects that are just wrong for the company to undertake. So, what's up with this? Someone who saw my presentation said, we're trying to get away from big design up front, and it sounds like you're recommending big design up front. And he wanted to know why UX wouldn't use fast feedback and iterations. So imagine your company is setting up a new workflow for a customer to register. They've got 5 steps: create an account, select the product, put in their payment details, order review, and completion. So that means, that's looking good, that developers could break this into 5 chunks, or maybe even smaller, more chunks. Engineers have asked me, why doesn't UX design step 1 deliver that, design step 2 deliver that? Because otherwise, you don't seem very agile or sprinty. Well, the question would be, when does UX get to test the whole process? People are going to be walking through the whole process. They're just not walking through isolated steps. So when would we test the whole workflow? And if it has flaws, does engineering really want to rebuild this stuff because they feel like we tested it late? That doesn't sound efficient. It doesn't sound like we're saving time and money and sanity. So remember that you guys can break things into smaller bits because you have the big picture. You have features and stories, and you might even have designs or blueprints from UX, or at least tons of details from product managers. So it's easy for you to break things into smaller pieces and deliver them in those pieces and then bring them together. But when UX gets a project, we don't know how the story ends. We don't have all the pieces. We have to create that. So that means for larger or newer projects, UX is kind of stuck treating their smallest piece as a user's workflow or a user's process. So we run the risk that if we design or test something smaller, we're missing that larger picture and the true experience. So not everything UX does needs this giant runway, but when we do need it, we need product and project and engineering to be prepared for that. Did anybody see this viral video? Does this look familiar? So as you can tell, hopefully from the still photo, there's a power outlet and there's an automatic soap dispenser. I'm sure they're great separately. However, install them next to each other, and this becomes a crappy workflow where as soon as you go to plug something in, the soap dispenser sees your hand and covers your hand and possibly your live piece of electrical gear in soap just as you're plugging it into a live outlet. That feels good, right? So this, I saw someone wrote, this is why you can't just do unit tests, you also have to do integration tests. But I think of it more as, this is why UX designs and tests complete workflows rather than separate pieces in isolation. Our process is so similar to yours. You can't just do the unit testing, you're going to have to do the integration testing as well. So if there's something smaller, of course we can be nimble, but sometimes we need time. And why aren't we doing fast feedback and iterating? Someone cut our budget and wouldn't let us. Someone decided, why are we spending all this money on UX? Why do they really need that? But of course, UX wants to get fast feedback and iterate. We want to design what really works for customers. So before complaining that UX is some sort of bad dog for not doing fast feedback and iterating, find out first if we were given the budget and time to get that fast feedback and do those iterations, because there's a grand canyon between, yeah, I'm great at this, I didn't bother testing that, and holy cats, of course I wanted to test that, but no one is letting me. So UX is a valuable investment. I know you're already convinced, but let me tell you more. In 2018, a famous tech company I won't name, and surely you don't recognize this screen at all, announced that they would be doing a redesign of their latest redesign. They found that when they released the product that everybody lost their minds. They considered the new feature clutter, obstacles, and drawbacks. Customers didn't ask for these features, and they didn't want, need, or like them. And the backlash was serious enough that the company went to their blog to admit, yeah, we kind of messed this one up. Our new design was overcomplicated, lacking simplicity, cluttered, difficult to navigate, and went a little too far with some visual design. But how much did this company spend on this? All of those concepts, layouts, engineers, and developing and testing for multiple platforms. Because, of course, we don't know what this is, but we know it comes on multiple platforms. And now the cost to undo it and redo it. What did they spend? $1 million? More? And think about the time and money this company could have spent if they had pivoted or changed direction before engineers wrote a line of code. We can know up front. There's no longer a good reason or excuse to just build it, just ship it, and find out later it's a disaster and your customers hate it. Companies can save time, money, staff resources, and customer agony by integrating the UX process. Your UX department would have known at many points in the story that the proposed new design was cluttered, lacking simplicity, overcomplicated, and difficult to navigate. So that's one of the reasons why UX specialists should be working with product and people in the portfolio to make sure that we're really choosing the right features and stories that have value for users. So I'm going to take a poll now. Get out your phones if you believe in online polls. I promise this won't be put on Facebook. I'm going to ask you, oh wait, no, this isn't the poll's coming up in a few more slides. Get your phones ready anyway. This slide is actually more about, people tell me, our company doesn't do UX because we can't afford it. I don't know what number you made up in your head that UX costs, but compare those costs to fun things like having to add more customer service reps, throwing more money at social media managers, the cost of employees who leave because creating customer dissatisfaction is crushing to your soul. That means there's knowledge out the door, costs to recruit, having to retrain people, loss of productivity. How about increasing your marketing spend because this piece of junk is hard to sell? How about the cost of having engineers rebuilding? Ooh, these are here somewhere. And explaining your terrible stuff to shareholders and the board like Snapchat had to earlier this year. Maybe offering discounts on your product because it's so hard to sell. So one UX person on your team, of course, doesn't solve all of your company's problems or all of your UX problems. But if your company has 0, please consider starting with 1. They will be able to solve some of your problems, and solving some is better than solving none. And hopefully you'll be sold on their importance and have good reasons to hire more. This is the poll slide. I now challenge you to take out your phones. If I have internet, we will be voting on a couple of different things and how much you think they affect the customer's experience. So you'll be able to vote from 0 to 10. The 0 would be the customer doesn't care about this at all. So you go to menti.com. Oh, holy cats. It's on my screen. Why isn't it on your screen? Can everyone see my screen? Okay, well, you should be able to see it on your phones even if you don't see it on the screen. Menti.com, M-E-N-T-I, and use the code 88752. Let's see if I can turn this around. Nope, wrong way. Oop, definitely wrong way. Let me try that again. So that was menti.com, 88752. I'll get us back up in a moment so you have time to vote. And this is going to be asking you to rate stuff from 0 to 10 on how likely it is to kill the customer experience and make them want to leave. I think that is this slide. All right. It's coming, it's coming. Menti.com, 88752. This should be live, so as people vote, these should start popping up. I hope people will get involved and vote. I know I'm keeping you from lunch. I promise lunch is the same time no matter when I finish. We've got about 10 more minutes. I promise they will give you food. This should be responding if you... are people voting? Anybody voting, or are people just pretending? So normally if I'm live on the internet, this should come up. So I'm very surprised. Did the internet die while I'm not looking? Yay! Humans! Thank you. Here we go. All right, 8 people, 9. Come on, there's at least 9 people in this room. Come on, people, it's free. It's the best election you'll see all year. Yes, well, mine is my former one as well. I now live in Italy, so I'm a little bit closer to... Ukraine wasn't as bad a flight. As I like to say, come see me in Italy, write it off as a business trip. All right, we've got a good, thank you, people. We've got a good number of people joining in. So as you can see from your own voting, you don't even need me to tell you this, the first 4 things on this screen are extremely important to the user's experience. Their perception of your software, maybe even their perception of your company. And that last one about timing and budget and efficiency, well, look, that's not great for us internally, but it probably didn't affect the customer's experience other than they might have to wait a little bit more for that next release if timing really got messed up. And this poll shows you concretely, in case you weren't sure, that bad UX is enough to make customers leave your company or consider leaving your company, which means UX is important. It's make or break. That means we need to work smarter and get qualified experts into every step of planning, prioritization, design, and many of the development steps. 52 of you, thank you for voting. The rest of you, no lunch. Okay. Okay, so let's measure how it's working. Just like there's lots of metrics that allow us to measure customer satisfaction, of course, many of our DevOps goals and results are measurable as well. Like, how long do stories, projects, and epics take to get to market before and after your coming UX revolution? I'd also imagine that developer time estimates become more accurate when they're able to estimate from UX wireframes and prototypes rather than stories, product manager descriptions, or whatever you're doing now. And if UX is providing blueprints and those are being followed, then I would imagine engineering has less work by having fewer changes, fewer surprises, fewer rebuilds. Getting releases out to the public more quickly sounds great, but let's make sure we're building the right product for the customer. Cough, cough, previous company who none of us recognized. No one wants to continually deploy pieces of junk. Internal communication and culture are measurable. A lot of that will be anecdotes or stories from workers on how they feel about their jobs or how they feel about working with UX or collaboration. If you need that to be more qualitative, then you've got to spin up a survey and ask workers periodically how they feel and measure how that's doing. So I want to talk a little bit about improving culture and collaboration, since this is where I see things starting to break down first in companies. So let's say your specialized database programmer is a bit of a bottleneck right now. Too many people are looking for that person's specialty. So what do? Well, solutions usually include pair programming, creating a skills matrix to better balance work in the future. Maybe you allow more teammates to do exploratory testing to get some feedback earlier. And maybe you just have to add another developer to the team. But do you know what isn't suggested in this scenario? Nobody expects that specialized programmer to teach his or her specialty to other people on the team. But I read a Scrum book that warned UX people are going to be a bottleneck, so they should train everybody on the team how to do their jobs. I studied some basic programming in the 70s. Who remembers the 70s? Anyone? Just me? That's so sad. I got old when no one was looking. I studied basic programming in the 70s. You know what that means. That means I have an eye for programming and a feel for coding. Remember those eyes and feels? They will come back to haunt you. So who wants to teach me some Ruby? Because you're a little bit backed up right now. I have a degree in music. So you want to teach me some Ruby because you're backed up right now. That makes sense, right? Or no, wait, I'll go take a boot camp. I'll go take a programming boot camp, and then I'm going to code to production. That sounds good, right? Where's all the yeses? No, blank faces, sad faces, no. Even I'm getting a total no over there. Thank you, sir. Well, of course, this isn't a great solution. Training others to do UX's job would hurt productivity, efficiency, the product, the customer satisfaction, and the culture, because UX is being told again, anybody can do your job. And side note here, I'm so tired of seeing conference sessions that say, come for an hour and we're going to teach you to do UX research, design, testing. That's doing a huge disservice to UX and to your customers, because nobody shows up at UX conferences and says, we're going to do a 1-hour session on Java, and then you're all going to be able to go back to your jobs and write Java. Not a thing. So if you see a UX conference where they tell you they're going to teach you to do our jobs, don't believe it. So some engineers and product managers have told me all the bad blood between UX and non-UX roles, it's UX's fault. That's amazing. How did that happen? I hear UX acts like specialized, dedicated people who aren't part of our team. Silos, silos, silos. UX is a black box, killing our timing. Our Agile training didn't say anything about UX, so we assume they're unimportant, replaceable, and expendable. I am a high-level UX practitioner with over 20 years of experience. I've suffered through Agile training. I've worked at many companies attempting to do Agile. I want to hear feedback. I want to be a friend to developers. I love collaboration. I want to get your ideas. And I'm teaching this, which means I certainly know a few things about how UX and software development should work together. And I have hours, the amount of whiskey you would have to drink to hear my hours of stories at companies where I've been circumvented, excluded, overruled, belittled. It's unbelievable, and it's all from the last 5 or so years of my career. People junior to me have it worse, and that's a tough culture. Put on your empathy hat and imagine this happening at your job. So it's a cycle. People are disconnecting because people are disconnecting, and it's not working. And crying that UX should train everyone to do their jobs, also not working. UX specialists are so dedicated to building the best thing for the customer and working with you, but we often don't get the chance because we're put on a team with people who think we just draw boxes on a page, or the engineering lead can overrule her if we like something better. So at many UX companies, someone leads an effort to do one or more of these bizarre approaches. And when the UX is bad and customers react, people say, we tried UX. It doesn't work. It's not worth the investment. Hey, whatever you did wouldn't qualify as UX to a UX expert. We want the best product for customers over anything else. If we found that you guys doing our work made a better product for customers and a better working environment for all of us, I would be at your desk every day trying to teach you my job. But we found that that doesn't work that way. We found that UX specialists doing UX work works better than non-UX specialists doing UX work. And notice it's only non-UX workers out there trying to tell you these new ideas or methodologies or approaches where magically UX is excluded or diluted. So it's time to try again, but we've got to do it right. If you're not properly and thoroughly incorporating your UX specialists, then please don't tell me or anyone that you're doing UX. We want the bed to be empty because the patient recovered. If your DevOps needs critical care and treatment, UX can't fix everything, but you might be surprised how much we can really improve. So it's time to rewrite the book. It's time to refresh any poor or incomplete training that you may have received. UX specialists are important to your organization, just like your expert product managers and engineers and other roles. So talk to your managers and leadership about what you've learned here about how productivity, efficiency, collaboration, culture, product, and customer satisfaction can be improved by working with UX. And of course, if you've got UX leadership, please work with them too. Stop leaving them out. And stop pointing fingers. It doesn't matter how we got to this disaster. It just matters that we're all going to work together to fix it and pave some new roads. So the path to getting your DevOps out of the ICU and seeing improved DevOps results, great product, and happy customers is the complete and correct integration of UX specialists and processes. And with that, I wrap up. And I say, please feel free to take a picture of this slide. It's got some URLs on it that you may dig and want to check out later. If you are interested in the 2-day version of DevOps ICU, which does mean listening to my voice for 2 days, there is a video version, and I also do hold some live versions over the internet. I've got some discounts for you guys there. For the 6-hour video version, I'm holding a drawing. Anybody who wants to enter, just go to that URL. I'll pull a name in about a week. I am re-recording a couple of chapters. I can't seem to stop writing this thing. It keeps, every day I add slides. So I've got to re-record a couple of things, but there you go. And I hope to see some of you guys around LinkedIn. Please add me. I believe I have 2 minutes, probably not enough time for too many questions, but let me try to take a question if anyone's on fire, and then later on I'll be checking any questions that got emailed into the system. So feel free to message a question to Menti with your email address, and I promise to write you back. Anybody have one burning, fiery question, or is it just, oh my God, give me lunch already?
To represent your deliverables as a UX expert.
Yeah, the question was my favorite tool sets for UX deliverables. So I work purely in Axure, not Microsoft Azure, Axure, A-X-U-R-E.
I know it.
A lot of people will know it. It's great for flowcharts, wireframes, and prototypes. I work in medium fidelity as I am not an artist, so I find developers love to get my clickable interactive prototypes so they can actually click through it and see how it works instead of getting static wireframes that just say, imagine it does this. And then, of course, I'll add any documentation that people need in addition to that. I always adjust for developers. I don't say, this is what I make, good luck. I say, what do you need? Here, I like to give you a prototype and some documentation. What do you need? I also see a lot of UX teams delivering Zeppelin. I think Zeppelin's very popular more for taking the visual design, which I'm not doing, the visual design, and turning that into your CSS and code snippets. Some UX people will use InVision for prototyping because it does a lot less than Axure, but it's certainly easier to learn. So you'll see InVision for prototyping. And a lot of people for wireframing have moved away from Adobe products, and a lot of UX people are using Sketch. I'm all Windows and Android, and proudly, and Sketch is only for Mac, so I had to install a virtual machine. So if anyone wants to help me with my virtual machine, I actually got it running. So those are the tools that I see. Are there other tools you're seeing that you have a question about?
Oh, the same tools usually.
So you're seeing those tools as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, thanks.
Okay. I'm happy to take questions all through lunch. I know you guys aren't that hungry. But if you have any questions, I'll be here all day today. Just find me. I'll be the only woman speaking at the event, so just look for the woman. And yeah, just look for the woman and say, hey, woman, I have a question for you about this whole UX thing. I'm happy to answer anybody's questions. I've got some business cards. And again, find me on LinkedIn if you want to hear about more of my crazy adventures. So thank you for coming and staying awake. Thank you.